Hi. Hi, I'm Lisa Piniani. I'm a Gottlieb Fellow at Loyola Marymount University's Center for Urban Resilience. I am also the former Executive Director of Friends of Bionah Wetlands and have been involved with the educational tours and restoration projects in Area B of the Bionah Wetlands Ecological Reserve for over 30 years. The Center for Urban Resilience recently joined as a new member of the Wetlands Restoration Principles Coalition of local nonprofits and organizations, which originally formed in 2015 to agree upon fundamental principles of sound wetlands restoration, not only at Bionah, but also in other critical wetland habitats up and down the state. With the successful stabilization of the Bionah tide gates by the Army Corps of Engineers back in the early 1990s, we have seen the Bionah population of the state's endangered Belding savanna sparrow rise from a dozen birds in 2009 to nearly 100 in 2015. I have reports from 2 experts on the Beldings to submit tonight. The hope was that more acreage of a habitat suited to the Beldings would be created in the more degraded areas of the ecological reserve, like Area A, when the restoration was to occur, to allow for the population to increase even more. In reviewing Alternative 1, we would like to see benchmark goals established in the creation of new habitat in Area A before altering the existing nesting habitat in Area B. The Belding savanna sparrow is a bellwether bird that represents a whole suite of other desirable wetland bird species we would like to see continue to thrive in the Bionah wetlands. For example, the stabilization of the pickleweed habitat in Area B has also attracted wintering flocks of western meadowlarks, a species we would like to see continue wintering at Bionah. Even better would be for the habitat to be created for the meadowlarks to nest, as well as reestablishment of suitable habitat for other birds that have been extirpated from the wetlands over the decades of degradation, such as the burrowing owl, loggerhead shrike, and white-tailed kite. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Probably going. I'm tribal chair of the Gabaleno Tonga Indians of California. I was born in Santa Monica and lived there, and in West Los Angeles and Westchester for most of my life. I have many ties to the land on which this project will take place. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about your proposed project regarding the 2 locations on your site that you have determined requires Native participation. LAN 54, or South Area C, on one of your maps states that the soil from 3 to 10 feet is field and therefore sterile. In 2002, I was appointed as the most likely descendant from the Native American Heritage Commission to take care of the human remains uncovered at approximately 2 feet from the surface. I required that there be no soil disturbances for a 50-foot diameter from the burial location due to the likelihood that there could be additional remains or cultural artifacts. Do you know that when that field dirt was installed, and will you be standing out there? Let me repeat that again. That there could be additional remains in that same general area. And do you know that when that field dirt was installed, and will you be staying out of the 50-foot diameter that was established as a no disturbance zone? LAN 47, or South Area B, on land currently used by Southern California Gas, includes a village site. As the most likely descendant for the Playa Vista property, which I was, this village was one of the sites I had suggested for reburial of the ancestors uncovered at Playa. In the 1980s, human remains were found scattered on the surface at this site. I'm making the point because it was not in the report. However, there are additional sites that must be considered due to sensitivity of the land, which is considered traditional cultural properties that are directly adjacent to this site and seem to have been overlooked. I'm sure it could be rectified. LAN 62, adjacent to the boundary of Southeast Area B, a member of the Lopez family that owned land nearby and close friends to our family observed pod hunters digging up artifacts out of the area west of Lincoln in 1946 and loading them into boxes. At a much later date, I was appointed the most likely descendant for this area. Playa Vista, or the village of Quashnock, where my grandmother, 3 generations removed, lived and may well have been buried there, is directly across Lincoln Boulevard from the wetlands. I was appointed the most likely descendant for the reburial of remains found on that site. LAN 63, LAN 64, directly adjacent to Southeast Area B. Both represent human remains that were uncovered at 2 feet and 3 feet below ground level. I was appointed as the most likely descendant for each of these ancestors. I'm hoping for the best results and the best methods used during the restoration. I love the wetlands and want everyone affiliated with this project to care as much as I do about this site. I think we're all in agreement about that.
I'm Catherine Tyrrell. I am a board member and also the past president of the Friends of Bino Wetlands. And I'm also a very proud member of the Wetlands Restoration Principles Coalition Steering Committee. And I wanted to note that that group has at least, just the steering committee, at least 25,000 people that it represents. So it's a very significant group. While professionally my expertise has been in the field of environmental policy and stormwater quality, today I speak as a 30-year resident of this area, Playa del Rey and Playa Vista. And I am very aware that much of what is called the Bino wetlands is not really wetlands at all, but merely fields of non-native vegetation with little to no tidal flow and certainly inadequate public access. I completely support the goals of the Wetlands Principles Coalition Steering Committee that were developed specifically for Baiona. We focused on increased sustainable habitat acreage and quality. We focused on increased tidal flows that are balanced with functioning ecosystem, and we focused on increasing public access that is compatible with habitat protection. After reviewing the document for the last 6 weeks, the coalition finds that the just elements of Alternative 1 and 2 will likely be the most successful in meeting these goals and bringing back Baiona. The no project alternative is really an absolute no-starter. You've heard other people talk about that. And while I personally love freshwater systems, like the mechanically sculpted freshwater marsh at Baiona, the dredge-filled and weed-infested Area A is totally isolated from any former watershed, and talk of it being a freshwater system is really meritless, as discussed in an alternative that is presented in the draft EIR-EIS. However, some details for solid decision-making in the draft document are lacking. For instance, the placement of fill from Area A is assigned to the alternatives in a manner which seems to reduce the wetland acreage in Alternative 2, but is not necessarily an attribute of only that alternative. We also see that details and mitigation are lacking and would want to see very complete mitigation plans moving forward. But thank you very much on behalf of the Friends and the Coalition, and bring back Baiona. Thank you.
I think what we really learned tonight is everybody has a lot of ideas of what should be done, things that haven't been done right or whatever. So what the main thing is, we all have to come together and figure this out. Because the bottom line is, for me as a just going by common sense, is that I think we do need to create, by restoring the habitable area, by giving more habitable area for the wildlife to thrive. It doesn't mean doing nothing, and it doesn't mean choosing a slow handheld method. It means figuring out, I'm going to assume a bulldozer, a safe way of phasing this in and doing it the right way, and finding the right way with all parties in agreement. Bulldozing is not a bad word when it will help the future of the Biola wetlands. Right now, the wetlands, a lot of them, are underneath a bunch of dirt. They're not wetlands now, and they need to be revealed. So let's get the plans together, find the best one, and save Biola wetlands. Thank you.
My name is James Almio. I've been a resident in the area for the last 48 years. Previously worked at BWER for 25 years, so quite familiar with this area. And I'm here just to stand in support of the wetlands restoration principles, the idea that we can bring back Biola using sound science, robust science. We've seen this play out most recently up in Malibu Creek watershed, where we've seen actual improvements in both water quality, the diversity in the plant, the diversity in the flora and fauna associated with that type of restoration. This cannot be done handheld. There's going to be some mechanical need in order to meet the 600 acres plus that we're going to need to restore over time. This can't be done, as someone previously stated, with hand. We don't have that kind of labor. It doesn't exist. And we don't have that kind of time frame in which to bring these wetlands back. And more importantly, we are supportive of options or alternatives 1 and 2 because they bring the biggest diversity possible, as well as, and more importantly, I think, or most importantly, is access to the area, which is desperately needed in the green spacing and the bringing back of the environment to LA. Thank you very much for the time.
Open up the
My name is Meredith McCarthy. I'm Director of Programs at Gila Bay. I have just 3 points. Thank you, Fish and Game, for the Newport Back Bay. I'm exceedingly excited that we have a future of interpretive opportunities here. And I think that based on the similar size area, I am looking forward to a significant emphasis placed on interpretive opportunities to bring the 11 million people in the region, give some of them an opportunity to come visit this incredibly special place. Right now, to have 600 acres paid for by the state, by state taxpayers that have no access to it currently is unacceptable, which is why no alternative is absolutely unacceptable. As Heat Island heats up the inner communities, the need to find rest and coolness at the coast is going to be ever so much more important. And being able to greet them, visitors that come here, is going to be very, very important. Biola is not here yet. 3% of functioning wetlands is not an acceptable number. I'm sort of struck, having been at Gila Bay for a long time, so many of the groups here today were so anti-freshwater when the freshwater marshes was being built, and now we're having this sudden mad love affair with fresh water. So I'm intrigued by that. I'm looking forward to a fully functioning 500-acre wetlands. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Catherine Pease, and I'm the watershed scientist at Gila Bay. Gila Bay has joined forces with other influential environmental groups through the steering committee of the Wetlands Restoration Principles Coalition to advocate for a robust restoration of the Biola wetlands. We are thrilled that the long-awaited restoration for Biola wetlands is finally underway, and we see real promise in alternatives 1 and 2 for the opportunity to bring back Biola to a healthy and functioning ecosystem. We will continue to analyze this dense document, and we will submit detailed written comments by February 5th. The Biola wetlands are not back. They are in trouble and need our help. Today, functioning wetlands make up only 3% of the reserve, and this is based on sound science. Realizing this restoration plan will increase those numbers, and much of the wetlands will become wet again. The plan has clear goals on good science and many years of research. To achieve increased biodiversity, we need to remove much of the 3 million cubic yards of sediment that are covering the wetlands. We need to remove the concrete levees that along Biona Creek to reconnect the creek to its floodplain. Restoration will be done carefully to protect and minimize any negative impacts to animals. These actions will make room for native species that depend on wetlands and bring the possibility that rare and endangered species will once again return to the area. The City of LA recently passed an initiative aimed at understanding and promoting biodiversity. The Biona Restoration Project is in line with this initiative and will be a great example of a positive way to increase biodiversity, with benefits to be felt for generations to come. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. Lisa, L-A-S-A, Schwab, S-C-H-W-A-B like boy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate in what we feel is a very important moment in our community's history. As a former 14-year resident of Playa del Rey and a local restaurant owner since 1999, I have long dreamt of a more collaborative and mutually beneficial relationship with the wetlands. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't take a deep breath of gratitude that I have the privilege of owning a business that borders such a rare and precious reserve. I am a native Californian and am very familiar with the historic use of much of the land. It once contained a motor dome, a stable, and unfortunately, a dumping ground for the Marina Channel dredging. We all have witnessed that the miracles of nature are often resilient and self-generating. We hope that during this discussion regarding public access, you would recognize that there are parcels that, if used responsibly, could be used by the public in a way that helps contribute to much-needed infrastructure. We appreciate any consideration to provide more parking, especially along Culver Boulevard. This area has magnificent possibilities for both the community of Playa del Rey and the visitors we hope to support. Playa del Rey lacks significant infrastructure, especially parking. We're very concerned about losing the small amount of public parking we now share, specifically the parking lot behind Gordon's Market. Closing this lot at dusk will have a devastating effect on our community. We respectfully ask that you consider an alternative such as closing this lot at midnight. With your help, we could make Playa del Rey a destination, the gateway to Biona wetlands. We support a full and vibrant restoration that strikes a healthy balance between nature and commerce. A restored Biona is good for our community, our precious wildlife, and our local businesses. I thank you for your consideration.
Hello, I'm Melissa von Meyerhauser, the Watershed Programs Manager at Los Angeles Waterkeeper, and we are part of the Waterkeeper Alliance as well as a member of the Wetlands Restoration Principles Coalition here tonight. And we will be submitting more detailed comments later with the coalition, but we really appreciate the chance tonight to highlight a few key thoughts at this moment. We would like to see a project that prioritizes nature-based solutions that connect with the larger Biona Creek watershed while enhancing community involvement along the way. So we are in favor of improving tidal circulation, removing concrete levees, and reconnecting the creek with its historic floodplain to reestablish a natural ecosystem with greater biodiversity. We see multiple benefits in terms of improving conditions for fish spawning habitat, increasing infiltration by slowing the flow of the creek, and mitigating the impacts of sea level rise. While we agree with the overarching premises of alternatives 1 and 2 and the need for intensive restoration, we would like to see a plan that increases public access in harmony with nature-based restoration goals without using hardscape, incorporates community involvement in the restoration process, and finally leads to more self-sustaining, naturally connected habitats in the wetland and creek in the context of the watershed. Thank you so much.
My name is David Kay, K-A-Y. I live in Playa Vista. Soldier, thank you for your service. You must be wondering, WTF is this all about? Ruth, thank you for your service. We love you. In the Biona DEIR, only alternative number 1, the full tidal restoration plan, accomplishes all of the goals established for Biona through 17 years and counting of public dialogue. Any choice other than alternative number 1 falls short and is settling for half a loaf rather than reaching for the whole. I urge you to not only move forward with alternative number 1, but choose it as the environmentally preferred alternative. You can only create tidal wetlands within reach of the tide. A decade ago, a team of scientists, planners, engineers, and constructors created, enhanced, and restored 440 acres of tidal wetlands and upland habitats near Del Mar, known as the San Dieguito Wetlands Restoration Project. Historically, tidal wetlands, gradually filled in for an airfield, cultivation, and grazing, crisscrossed by roads and other infrastructure, bisected by a major flood-controlling river channel, and hemmed in by suburban development, San Dieguito had everything in common with Ballona, and so is an excellent example of how full tidal restoration would proceed here today. I know you know how that project turned out, and that you studied San Dieguito's lessons learned, because those lessons are pervasive throughout your Ballona project DEIR. Well done. Move forward with alternative number 1. Bring back Ballona. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Searcy. I'm a staff scientist for Heal the Bay, an organization that represents tens of thousands of Angelinos and is a member of the Wetlands Restoration Principal Committee. Tonight I am speaking to you just as a resident of Venice, a surfer, and a nature lover. I want to start by thanking the Army Corps and DFW staff. We're excited to see this project finally move forward, and I trust that a rigorous science-based alternative will be employed to restore Ballona to a healthy state. Tonight I kind of want to just talk a little bit about what's important to me personally, and that is the connection between nature and human beings. We're running out of places where we can just sit and be and listen to the birds and just the birds and smell native plants and flowers and just the native plants and flowers. Instead, we're kind of left to live in a box that's completely paved over and overrun by swarms of automobiles and shadowed by advertisements on billboards. We know that doing nothing will have severe consequences for Ballona and all those people that want to interact with it. Invasive plants have spread to much of the wetlands and continue to do so. Climate change and the resultant sea level rise pose a great threat to it. So let's nurture what we have and support it. Let's help give Ballona a chance. A robust restoration of Ballona will improve the habitat for native plants and wildlife. It'll improve water quality for fish, and it'll improve access for those who need to taste the nature that I was talking about. Doing nothing is not an option. Please bring back Ballona. Thank you. Yeah.
Hi. Walden. Yeah. My name is June Walden. I was born and raised on the west side of Los Angeles. I remember when I was a little kid, my dad used to take me down to the puddles that were down here, and I used to play in them. So I've been here a long time. I drove up the hill to go to work in Westchester for 20 years and looked at 2 lots at the corner of Lincoln and Jefferson that were fallow fields. Occasionally you would see a bird in them. Okay? Well, when I retired, I knew that I was not going to last because I like to teach people and I taught little kids. And so I came down here. For 17 years, I've been a docent. I work with students of all ages. I work with adults. Okay, I love it here. I've seen a lot of changes. First of all, I'd like to say, once I was asked on a tour, why don't you restore it like it used to be? And I said, okay, fine. Let's just take out all the man-made structures, everything between here and the beginning of the watershed. Let us sit around for a couple thousand years and we'll restore it. It's not possible. We've got roads, we've got people, my house, okay? So, we've got 610 acres. What do we do with it? I have always said, and I've gone to a lot of meetings, we do the very, very best we can with the very, very best science for the animals and for the people. Now, if you look at the two lots up at Lincoln and Jefferson, Fallow, a vibrant freshwater marsh, that was bulldozed, because that's one of those. That's one of those buzzwords that's being thrown around here. Get everybody in an uproar. It's going to be terrible. We all know that very successful things have been done with bulldozers. We all know that. Okay, I'm sorry. Very quickly, I see people using that in conjunction with the animals around the freshwater marsh. That's what I want to see.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Lance Williams. I am a resident of Playa del Rey. I own and operate a business on Playa del Rey, which is bordering the wetlands. I have seen firsthand what the Friends have done there, and the partial restoration that they've done is incredible. I would love to see more of this restoration continue. This seems like a little overreaching, but I think if it's done carefully and with everything that needs to be done, it could be a wonderful place and draw back from some of the degradation that's occurred. I'd also like to say there is a parking lot behind Culver Boulevard that is used to access the wetlands, that is also used by the community. We have a community of businesses and people, residents who use that area because there simply isn't any other place. I'd like to see that continue to be used by the public and not closed off from sunset to sunrise. It would be very difficult on the area for other people. I'd like to cite the Coastal Commission statute of 30212.5. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, I'm Tori Chair, LA Program Director for the Trust for Public Land. We are a member of the Wetlands Restoration Coalition. In 2003, the Trust for Public Land, in collaboration with community activists, resource agencies, and state and local officials, facilitated the acquisition of the 483-acre Ballona wetland site. We did this using Prop 12 and Prop 50 funds, really as the first step with the intention of getting the wetlands back and fully restored. In Los Angeles County, where 98% of coastal wetlands have been developed, fully restored wetlands like Ballona offer critical recreational and resiliency infrastructure for our region. Now that the EIR is released, we are glad to support full and science-based restoration, and we support a combination of alternatives 1 and 2. These alternatives provide the best value for restoration and public access and appropriate recreation. The Trust for Public Land strongly supports the Wetlands Restoration Coalition principles, specifically the need for full restoration. As a member of this coalition and consistent with these principles, we encourage the department to first, ensure meaningful and appropriate public access that is compatible with habitat protection. Any approved alternative should consider bike and pedestrian access to and from this site, as well as critical parking for visitors. Maximize restoration while planning for and managing impacts from climate-related sea level rise. Restore the wetlands in a way that is holistic and self-sustaining and connects the wetlands to the greater LA creeks and watersheds. We ask you to bring Ballona back and really complete the project that was started in 2003 when we completed the acquisition of the nearly 500-acre site.
And good evening, my name is Craig Cadwallader, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Surfrider Foundation South Bay chapter, one of the founding members and on the steering committee of the Wetlands Restoration Principles Coalition. I would like to voice our organization's support for a robust and science-based restoration plan that brings back Ballona to a highly functioning and biologically diverse condition. Surfrider South Bay has conducted water quality sampling and testing at the Ballona Freshwater Marsh since 2005. We have documented significant improvement in the quality of water discharged from the freshwater marsh as a direct result of recontouring the marsh and surrounding land, and as a bonus, have observed impressive increases in wildlife using the marsh for foraging and nesting. Prior to restoration, only about 50 species of birds were found in that area, and after restoration, more than 250 species have been identified at the marsh. And I might want to point out that that marsh was mechanically contoured, and I see more wildlife there every day when I do water sampling there myself, and it's an amazing, beautiful area. We have some concerns about accounting for sea level rise, and we hope that that will be properly addressed. And finally, personally, we have a problem with the parking structure that is proposed on the land, just as we did with the Annenberg proposed animal hospital we don't believe that that sort of structure belongs on public land. We'd like to see it across the street on the parking lots there. So we hope you proceed in a responsible, science-based manner, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak on this, and let's bring back Biona. Thank you.